how is the Russ story different from any of those others? And we're talking to Jason Wolf, investigative reporter who wrote this story and did this investigation into these nonprofits. Can you explain, or is Russell's story different from the others?
The way Russell's story is different from the ones that I just mentioned is because Peanut Tillman figured out what was going on and left that company, right? And now his nonprofit's doing really well. Phileas Campbell stopped hosting this golf event that lost money year after year after year. He was actually paying his sister to run the nonprofit at the beginning, which is a detail not in the story. I can only get so much about these guys in, you know what I mean, when I write about so many of them. But, then he started donating hundreds of thousands of his own money to reputable organizations. Anquan Bolden and his wife turned things around. Andrew Whitworth is in the process of shutting his nonprofit down. He's spending more on salaries and charity, but it's at a very different level than Russ. Andrew Whitworth, we're talking about like $33,000 in salary over the last 3 years and $20,000 in charity, 35 cents of every dollar to nonprofits. But he knows, and he's trying to shut it down, and it's small potatoes. Russ is different because he seems to be leaning into this. It's getting worse over time. And we're talking about $500,000 in salaries per year spent on a handful of his employees who he has outside business relationships with. One of them is making like $250,000 a year and is working for Russell and Sierra's family office as well. And that's not reported on federal tax documents. So, that can raise issues with the IRS in terms of excess benefit transactions. He's paying these people like far above, tens of thousands of dollars above the 90th percentile for what top leaders make at nonprofits between $1 to $5 million in the Seattle region. And I see people comparing, the Why Not You Foundation to, the Red Cross or the Wounded Warrior Project and saying, oh, well, these executives make six figures too. It's like these are not comparable organizations in any way, shape, or form, right? Like many of those organizations have like real programmatic activities. You're talking about hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in revenue and expenses. The Russell Wilson Foundation is like $1.2 million. And they're spending half of that on salaries, and then they're spending even more of that on other overhead, other management, and general expenses and fundraising, right? And so over the 8 years that it has existed, less than 40 cents on average of every dollar spent has gone to charity. And since he won the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award and hired a chief strategy officer, which is an odd position, in addition to an executive director making six figures, and then has that guy working for the family office as well, and both are supposedly full-time positions. That is problematic. That is how the Why Not You Foundation is.
Last thing then. Let me last question, because we got to run. I know you got to run, and people really need to just go read this, which would be great.
Yeah.
At the Arizona, azcentral.com, right? So
azcentral.com or USA Today.
Okay. So last question quickly. Do you believe, after all of the research you've done, not only into Russ and his foundation, but into the rest of the Man of the Year Award winners and this story in general, is Russell Wilson more of a victim or more of the problem in this case?
Anquan Bolden had a really great quote that he gave me, and he has founded 3 nonprofits, including the Players Coalition, and has offered his help to any players who are looking for nonprofit advice. There's blame to go around, right? Like, this is on the league, this is on the union, this is on the players themselves, right? Russell Wilson is the president of the Russell Wilson Foundation. It is an independent, tax-exempt 501c3 organization, and it has legal responsibilities. Among them, the money it belongs to the public. That's why it's tax-exempt, and he has a fiduciary duty to act in the best interest of the public and the beneficiaries of the nonprofit that he founded. So, yeah, the buck ultimately does stop with him. At the same time, we're talking about guys coming into the league when they're 20-some years old. They're kids. They're football players. They don't know what they don't know. They're not nonprofit experts. They hire people who they trust, and those people often don't know what they don't know, and that's a problem.
The nuance of it is really well captured there, and maybe it's an unfair question to say, is he more one or the other? Because in so many ways it sounds like the answer is sort of both. right? At the beginning, you maybe get taken advantage of, but at some point, it's on you to step up and say, hey, I got to own this. This is my foundation. I have a responsibility, and I got to make some of the changes that some of these other guys have done. Jason,
Right.
Tell people where they can find you. As you said, AZCentral.com, USAtoday.com. Your Twitter handle is...
At Jason Wolf, WOLF. I have pinned the full 5-part series to the top of my profile. Really easy to find.